This is a Guide Your Light network production, creating podcasts with purpose.
Hello, beautiful. This is the Awakening to More podcast, and I'm Alicia Timmerman. Have you ever asked yourself, is there more, or thought to yourself, there must be more? In this podcast, we explore all of the areas of your life where you might be yearning for more. More meaning, more connection, more time, more growth and abundance, but also more patience, calm, peace, acceptance, and of course, fun. From spiritual awakenings and journeys, relationships, business, parenting, and all of the things. Join me as I share from my heart to yours, along with amazing guests, to help you find your own way home, to create a life you relish and love. Thank you for being here. Let's jump in. Hello, beautiful. Welcome to episode 4. The topic today is all about channeling and that we are all channelers. I'm going to share a little bit about my story because I'm conscious that many of you have never come across me before and don't know how my channeling journey started. For those of you who do know this, you can just skip ahead unless you want to hear it again. There's always different things that come out each time I share it. However, if you are new, I'd love to share a little bit about the story. And I know that there are many, many people who are starting to experience channeling, and right now on this realm, many spiritual gifts are starting to come online for people. So in sharing my story, there may be some things that can assist you as you embark on your journey. So let me take you back in time to March 2012. This is when I had this phenomenal experience in my life, definitely a milestone in my human journey, where I actually didn't discover I was a channeler on this day because it took me I'm a bit of a slow learner in some ways, it took me about 6 or possibly 8 years. Gosh, surely it wasn't that long, but I think it actually was, to even know that I was a channeler, because I didn't even know the word channeler. I didn't know the concept of someone being a channel or a channeler, what that was. Back then in March 2012, it wasn't really that prevalent. Now in 2023, when I'm recording this, there are many, many, many more channelers now. And if you go on YouTube, you'll probably be able to find heaps and heaps of channeled information. But back then, was a bit of a lonely time for me because I didn't have other experiences to guide me. So hopefully this can help you as well on your journey. And even if you're not overtly channeling, I believe you are a channel and that you have certainly channeled various times in your life as well. So I'll take you back. March 2012, I am hanging out the washing on a Hills hoist in Melbourne. My feet are in the grass, probably barefoot, and I have this experience where a calmness just washed over me. I felt like I kind of got paralyzed. Like in my mind, from memory, I feel like my hands were up and I was like literally putting clothes on the line, and I feel like I became a bit paralyzed in some way. I mean, that sounds a bit scary, but I just remember just feeling this calm energy wash over me. And then my voice started talking to me using my own voice, not by my conscious direction. And what I heard coming out of my own mouth was something like, I am, I am, I am. And I don't know how many times, but it could have been 20 or 30 times. I am. And I'm thinking, what is going on here? And then finally, the connection is made more fully, and I hear, I am Goenga, your father spirit guide, here to remind you what you are here to do on earth. And then Goenga spoke about helping people remember who they truly are and to remember the way, to remember energy, to understand energy. And in that moment, I remember Alicia, me, the personality, thinking, right, one of two things has happened. I have either gone batshit crazy without any history of mental illness, drug taking, alcohol. At that point, I had stopped drinking alcohol when I was about 30, so I was 36 at this time. So I definitely wasn't on a bender or anything like that. So I'd either gone batshit crazy or this was actually happening, and I knew that this was real. It just felt so true in my body that this was really, really happening. And at the time, it's a bit of a blur for me this time. I remember it was a really intense period in my life when this happened. And there were some events leading up to it that I'll probably go into in other episodes, but I really want to focus this on the channeling now. But I remember it being very intense. I remember that I was very conscious not to share this with many people. Over the coming 6 or 8 weeks, I had a lot of different connections, energies coming through and communicating with me like this, and all of them very different. So they would use my voice differently. My voice sounded very different with each of them. They would all introduce themselves by name, and they would use my body and move my body differently. My face would contort differently. It was very intense, very full on. And I remember I went and got an old Panasonic video recorder, and if I felt an energy coming through, I would kind of stumble with my video camera, trying to set it up at the same time as having this connection come through, and because I wanted to capture it. As I've probably mentioned, a lot of the work I've done is in the workplace law space, and I continue to work in that area, but I'd done a lot of investigations, a lot of workplace investigations. So there was still this investigator in me. It was I need to actually get the evidence of this situation, of everything that's happening. And so I did. I've got these recordings back from 2012 of these different energies coming through. And I remember just watching them back, just so kind of blown away that me, my face, my body, that these different beings were coming through. I was very conscious around who I spoke to at the time. And so for those of you who maybe are starting to get your spiritual gifts come online, maybe not exactly in this form, this is kind of a very overt way for it to happen. And I often say to people, I'm not sure I'd choose it. I mean, I did choose it before it came, but sometimes I think, gosh, I'd like to be able to bring through my spiritual gifts in a way that's not so out there. But that wasn't the case. And so it's taken me quite a long time to just really accept how this works coming through me. So I only told maybe 6 people for possibly about 6 years, I'd say, from March 2012, for about 6 years. I told very, very trusted people that this was happening and that I was experiencing this, because as I'm sure you can imagine, things in your life where you felt like something has happened or new perspectives have come, or you've learnt something new about yourself, and you may be tentative to share that with other people because you're not sure how they're going to respond. And that was very much the case for me, because I had really established my personality as a very kind of sensible person doing a very mainstream job. I'd worked in one of the big law firms for 10 years. I had really that sensible life, got married, had kids, had the job, all of those things. I'd never really been one to colour outside the lines very much. I hadn't really allowed myself, I think, looking back, to really go crazy ever. And I mean, I had aspects of that, but really, on the whole, I was pretty well controlled and probably restrained in a lot of ways, and probably wasn't really great at just, letting my hair down and throwing caution to the wind and all of those things in those early years. So yeah, I told very few people, and it was, as I've said, it was a very, very intense time. And largely because I didn't feel safe to tell people. I was so concerned that people were going to think I'm a freak, that people were going to think I was a weirdo, and, that deep thing we have inside of ourselves to want to fit in and to want to belong. Well, as soon as I come out saying this, like, I immediately don't fit in with the vast majority of the population when I'm doing this kind of stuff. Plus, I knew that people had views about channeling. Well, I didn't know it was channeling, but views about, I guess, communing with energies beyond this realm, that there was some fear around that, particularly in certain religions and things like that. And I was conscious of that. So the things that really tipped the balance for me in terms of knowing that this was the real deal, even though I felt it in that moment, there were a few things. And one was the fact that I had some physiological changes happening. So I had this pelvis issue from when I was pregnant with, honestly, do not do this. And I'm sure most sensible people know you don't do this, but for some reason, I'm very much like people pleasery, don't necessarily always think first through things, and very good at doing what I'm told. In the past, I was. And there was one night that I was pregnant, and this was with my second baby, and my mother-in-law then, I think she'd had a few drinks, she was having a good time, and she said, "Lish, can you do the splits?" She's from Northern England. And I just immediately kind of dropped down, because I was naturally pretty flexible, and went to do the split. I was pregnant, like, I don't even know how pregnant, maybe 6 months pregnant, right? And I just heard good. And I twisted my pelvis in that moment, pregnant. And I literally could barely walk for the rest of my pregnancy. I was on a Zimmer frame. I was in, a lot of pain for that situation. And I have no bad feelings to you, beautiful Claret. I knew that it was totally my doing. And anyway, when this channeling started, I had been seeing a chiropractor. My baby was at that point like 4 years old. So but I still had this ongoing issue with my pelvis. And I then had a coccyx pop issue when this same baby that I was pregnant with, when she was 18 months old, I'd sat down to pick her up, and I'd put my coccyx into a corner of a chair and pushed it forward. So I had this pelvis coccyx issue, and it's actually hilarious because at one point I was going into my job in the city and I couldn't sit. I actually was on a Zimmer frame. I couldn't sit down. This was even post giving birth. It kind of kept reoccurring, and I would just push my body so hard and not listen to my body back then. And I remember I was going onto the train into work, and I had a hemorrhoid cushion that I was sitting on the train so I could sit down, because otherwise it was too painful to sit down. And I never knew it was a hemorrhoid cushion until someone said to me later it was a hemorrhoid cushion. So I'm like going in on the train with my little hemorrhoid cushion. Hi everyone, I've got hemorrhoids. I didn't actually. I had this coccyx issue. Anyway, oh God, those times just seem like such a blur, where my body this is pre all of this happening, was really telling me, like, you're going too fast, you've got to slow down. And it ended in a wake-up call for me, which was probably about 6 months or something, I can't remember, before the actual channeling. I should tell you, I call this the washing line experience, the channeling, because that's where I was at the washing line. But maybe 6 months earlier, I've probably got the timing wrong. I had a wake-up call where my little boy, he had this sore tummy, and I was taking him to get an ultrasound, and he wasn't cooperating. He wouldn't wee when he had to wee. My little girl was running around, and people were saying, your daughter's taking over the clinic. And I just felt like this hopeless mum. I couldn't control my kids. And I was thinking, I don't even have time for this. I need to get back to work. I need to do all of these things. I need to help my team do all of these things, and blah, 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 blah. And then I just got back in the car and I just cried, this ugly crying. My kids were in the back of the car. My mum actually rang my mum. She came and she took my kids and gave them pancakes, and I just had a bit of a meltdown. And I just felt this kind of energy, or this something just say to me, what are you doing? You had these beautiful babies. You so wanted to be a mama. I always wanted to be. From when I was young, I always saw myself with lots of kids. I actually thought I was going to have 6. So 4 for now. And please, God, I'm done. I keep saying my channel's closed to any new beings. But anyway, so I had this wake-up call, and that led me to get back on path and connect back with myself and spend more time meditating, journaling, all of the things. So there was a whole lead up to the time where the washing line experience actually happened. Anyway, what I'm telling you is this physiological evidence was that I had been seeing a chiropractor. And when I went to the chiropractor around this time when the channeling had started, my chiropractor said to me, she said, I don't know what you have been doing, but it is like I'm working on a different body. And I was thinking, okay, this is interesting, right? This is a change, because they'd been shaking my body around, moving my body around, doing a lot of things with my body. And my arms were going, my legs were going, all these things, actually kind of recalibrating my body in some way. So that was just something that was another piece of evidence for me. Another thing was, I had never really been able to sing, and I desperately wanted to make it into the chorus of the school musical, and I didn't make it into the chorus, which was a little bit embarrassing, because somehow I had been given the role of vice arts captain or something at my school. God only knows how. And I didn't make it into the chorus, and I remember being like really embarrassed. I remember I'd sung a few times and had been told you can't sing, when people tell you that, and it shuts your voice down and all of those things. Anyway, I then started to notice around this channeling time that I could sing seemingly, and that was certainly not amazing, but I was starting to be in tune with the radio, and I had a different voice, and I was just loving singing. It was so much fun. So that's been another thing, because my guides use my voice to bring through a lot of frequencies and sound healing through my voice. And it's so interesting. You know how you look back when you were a kid and think about the things that you said or you did or you loved. And for some weird reason that kind of made sense to me only recently, I used to say to my mum and dad, maybe when I was 5 or something, don't call me Alicia, call me Music Box. No, it wasn't like musical or anything back then. But in some ways, it's like that's how they use my channel, as a bit of a music box to bring through different frequencies from higher dimensions. So yeah, I thought that was interesting recently. So the third thing that really was like the absolute, okay, Alicia, you can call off the investigation, was when I had one of my guides came through early on, and I remember exactly where I was standing at the front of the house I was living with at the time, and there was like a big mirror at the front door. And I would often channel in the mirror, because it's like I'm then talking to someone and they're talking back to me. And also the curiosity. I just like to watch how it all looked coming through my body. And this one time I had this being start to communicate with me using an entirely different language. And it was a really intense channeling. I mean, I could feel a sense of what was being said, like, when you're speaking to someone who speaks another language and you can kind of get a sense and they're moving their hands and this and that. But I didn't really know what was being said. I could just feel the sense of it. And as soon as that energy got off my channel, I remember the force of it. Like, I actually kind of fell backwards a little bit. And it was like, I literally felt the energy come out, and I fell backwards. And I remember saying to my guides at the time, hey, this is a little bit much for me right now. Like, you're going too fast. I don't think I'm ready for this. I am this white Australian woman, and I'm now channeling a language that I don't understand what I'm saying. And then I heard, I actually don't know now, looking back, whether I heard it or whether I was directly channeling and a guide said this to me. Because I know in my last episode, I think I said, my guides don't talk in my head. They talk right through me in words. Well, they do both. But I guess predominantly the key way that I channel when I'm working is where they're directly using my voice. Anyway, what I heard or they said was that language is Minahasan. And I was like, okay, I don't know what that is. I've never heard that before in my Alicia experience of life. And so I went to Google, my friends, don't we? How do we live without Google, honestly? Yeah. I went to Google and I looked it up, and I'll never ever forget the moment where I typed this in. I didn't even really know how to spell it. I kind of just had a go at it. And what popped up, this blew my freaking mind, which was that Minahasan is an ancient dialect of Manado. So anyone know where Manado is? I wish I could hear you talking back. Manado is at the tip of Sulawesi. Sulawesi is an island in Indonesia. My blood grandfather in this life, he's passed now, his blood, he is Manadanese. I'm a quarter Indonesian and he is Manadanese. I didn't have a lot to do with him. He was in Sydney, we were in Melbourne. I would say I feel like, my parents might say this is wrong, but I feel like I saw him maybe 6 times in my life before he passed. So we certainly didn't talk about what the ancient dialects were of Manado. And he never really spoke about Indonesia at all the times that I saw him. So this was something that was not in my understanding as Alicia, and something that was it verified. And not only did it verify for me that this was absolutely, really, truly happening, the channeling, it also was very comforting knowing that I had this kind of family ancestral guide, even though I had the strong sense that other guides I knew before in other experiences, but just that I had this ancestral guide speaking through me just felt, very, very affirming in some way. So that's kind of like the story. There's all bits and bobs and different parts of that that I'll probably share at some stage. But that's kind of the main way that all of the channeling started for me when I was 36, and with my feet in the grass, spontaneous channeling, but not fully spontaneous because I'd had some things happening prior to that, with my body moving spontaneously to shaking meditation. I'd had my nan come through me with some automatic writing prior to this, so I had some channeling starting. Again, didn't know what it was, but then this was how it then started to happen really overtly. But early on, I didn't feel like I had a lot of control, and I felt like these energies, these guides, they were so excited to have made connection with my channel, get onto my radio station, that whenever I was by myself, which is not often, those of you who are parents, then they would just kind of fly in and be like, oh, here we go, right. One's coming in, one wants to say this, one wants to say that. And I remember finding it pretty full on and also very tiring, if I'm really honest with myself. And you all, my friends, my listeners, I love you all so much. Thanks for listening, sweethearts. So it was tiring for me. And so after a channeling, I would often be I'd feel a bit drained because of the interchange of my energy and their energy. And I'll talk a little bit more about channeling and how that kind of all works. So for those of you who are new and actually experiencing channeling, or you might not be yet, but this might be relevant down the track when this starts to happen for you, it's really important to know that we have the command over this, and you can place some boundaries around this. And I remember having my Reiki master at the time come around to my house and saying, John Williams, shout out. I said to him, you got to help me. I don't know what's going on here. And yeah, he just helped me to place some boundaries and for them to know that I didn't want them just to come in unless I called them in, unless I invited them in. And since I've placed that boundary, they have been deeply respectful of that, because in some ways they forget what it's like to be, and some have never even been in this realm, but they forget what it's like to be in a human experience and to have all of the things that we've got to do here in this realm, all the day-to-day things, and they don't have time or space. So they just flying in and out all over the place, having a great deal of fun. And they have so much fun. That's what I've got to say about these energies. They are playful, they are delightful, they have great sense of humor, incredible sense of humor, very, 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 very fun friends of mine. I just have this team of beautiful friends. They don't happen to have any bodies here in this realm, but I really do regard them as my good friends. So I'm going to get into channeling a little bit more, and there'll be many people listening that probably know way more about channeling than me. What I know of this is really predominantly from my own direct experience of now having been channeling since early 2012. And to be fair, the first 6 years I didn't do a lot. I kind of had this intense period where they were all coming in, and then I didn't really make a lot of room or space for it. Here and there, a little bit here and there, but I hadn't really told people about it. I didn't really know what to do with it. I was kind of writing a lot. They were bringing through information quite a lot, and I was utilizing that information in my own life to really create a lot of changes in my own life, but I wasn't really sharing that. And it wasn't until 6 years in, it was around April 2012, that I finally had the guts to start just saying, hey, by the way, everyone who I knew, this is what I do, and this is another part of my life. And it really felt like I talk about it as if I was coming out of the spiritual closet. Like literally, there's this whole other part of me where I'm kind of interplaying with these different realms, which most people didn't know about me. And I was fearful of that, of coming out. But what I can say is that it's been amazing. People have been so supportive, so kind, so loving. And those who know me well know that I tend to kind of go all in when I do something. So when I decided to come out of the closet, I literally got on and did a video and put it on my Facebook, my personal page, saying, hey, everyone, by the way, this is my experience. And if you want to know more, come across into this Facebook group that I set up, which is called Free Frequency Raising Energy Earth School. It used to be called Breathe, Love, Laugh, actually, when I first started it. But anyway, so that's the story. That's how it all happened. So what is channeling? So for me, what happens is my human self kind of steps aside and surrenders to become this vessel, this open channel this allowing an energy to come into my being and to utilize my body, move my body as they desire, use my voice as they desire, use my face and my facial expressions as they desire. And for me, it feels like a form of meditation because I have to be so in the present. So when I'm channeling, I can't really be thinking about anything else because I am in I wouldn't say like a fully altered state. I think a lot of channels maybe go into like quite a deep altered state. It doesn't fully feel like that for me. I'm a conscious channeler, so it's regarded, I think, as very, very light trance. Maybe channeling. There are some people who are deep trance channelers who are not conscious. So they surrender, they open their vessel, their channel, and they do their channeling. And then when it's finished, they come back, but they don't recall anything that they have said. So I haven't fully given up control yet. That may be something down the track, but for now, I'm still sitting there and just sitting on my right shoulder is how it feels to me. So the information comes, my understanding is that the information comes in kind of codes or blocks of information. You can imagine we're trying to translate, they're trying to use my being and use English to translate information and messages from their realms, which are much higher. So English is very limited. They have to fit their concepts and their ideas and their messages into, well, for me, because I'm an English speaking person, well, not only English speaking, because they also do channel through me with different languages, not languages on this earth, but languages that my understanding is that our soul understands, and using light codes and frequency and all of those kind of things, which I think when they channel through me that way, they can provide a much clearer, higher communication and transmission because it's not limited by the density of the English language, if that makes sense. So I'm conscious, I can take control back at any time, I can kick them out at any time, if that makes sense. So it's pretty nuts. Can you imagine? And those of you who are channelers, you can. Well, overt channelers like me, that you've got another being talking through your vessel, using your words that you're not initiating. Like it is quite out there. And it has been a bit full on for people very close to me because it probably looks like I've got multiple personality disorder, I guess, if I were to be if I were to be diagnosed. It could look like that. Definitely could look like that. But I feel that all of us, we are all channelers. We have all had experiences where we have inspiration, inspired thought. We have something that we feel like comes into us, but it's kind of, I feel like the way I describe it is, you know, when you feel like something comes in sideways, like, I don't know, feels like you haven't generated it, but something's just dropped in, or you feel like a synchronicity, or you feel a knowing about something. To me, that is when you are receiving information from higher realms. And artists, we know there are so many artists who are channeling. They are channeling poetry, channeling plays. You hear about people where they say, you know, I just sat down and I wrote that in 20 minutes, or I wrote this book in whatever time. It just like, literally they turn on the tap and it just flows through them and they become this vessel for the expression of these energies to come through us. So for the people receiving the transmission, I believe that these messages and the frequencies can have really positive and powerful impacts for people and really help to resonate with that higher frequency of energy that we have and connect into that part of us. And they bring through healing vibrations and that help us to really drop away and wash away things that just cannot sit with that frequency can no longer coexist. So I've spoken in previous episodes about this idea of us all being radio stations, being satellite dishes. And so we can channel in many ways, and you can channel connecting your channel into your higher self, your intuition, the part of you that understands like the deeper meaning behind all the things in our life that potentially our human limited egoic self just doesn't see the full, more expansive picture. We can also channel we can channel angels, guardian angel. I'll never forget the first time I actually felt the embrace of my guardian angel. My interest in all of this started with angels. I was very interested in connecting with angels. I wanted to know about angels. I had my angel numbers just were so overt, so obvious, ridiculous, from probably maybe about 18. I started just to see the same numbers again and again. So if that's something you've experienced, I believe that that's your spirit team wanting to connect with you and to let you know it's all okay, darling. We're here with you. We're here with you. So then there's spirit guides who we can channel. I channel ascended masters. They call themselves. They talk about how they've been here. They understand this realm, and they're not currently back in human form. And I think maybe ascended. I had to look it up when they said they're ascended masters. I had to then go to Google as well for that. And that I think maybe they've done all of their lessons here. Maybe that ascended master means they don't have to come back to Earth. Some of you will know more about this than me. Archangels, I have had the good fortune of some archangels coming through, very rarely, but I have. But ultimately, I want to be channeling kind of none of that and just being a direct channel for God, and whatever language that is, whatever concept that is for you, source, unconditional love, or as my guides call it, all that is and all that will ever be, but to be really the hands and the face, the words of pure unconditional love. Like that's where it's at for me. So that's not what's happening for me right now. At the moment, I've got the guides coming through, but that's definitely something that I'm keen to work towards. So guides have messages from other dimensions, higher realms, higher levels of consciousness, an expanded sense of seeing things from a much bigger playing field, and that can help us really for the evolution of us on this planet. So I've spoken a little bit about the difference with the trance channeling, the deep trance channeling. And so with me, with this conscious channeling, I'm really intentionally offering my system over to my guides, which does require a pretty high level of trust, particularly when I would often and have done stacks of channeled messages into my Facebook group where I don't know what they're going to say. I don't know what they're going to talk about. I don't know what's going to come through my mouth. So that has definitely required a lot of trust for me to say, okay, I'm going to go live now and I'm going to bring through a channeled message, and I have no idea what is about to be said. All I can say is that my confidence in the energies that come through is so high because they have never said anything that I have felt concerned about. The messages are so loving, so gracious, so generous, so beautiful that that hasn't happened. So that's continued to, I guess, build my confidence in channeling. And over time, I should say, because if you're new to this and you're experiencing channeling and you are also feeling tired from it, it's like anything here in this realm. Practice has made the connection so much faster and easier. And the guides that I work with regularly, particularly my healing guide who does healings, our connection, we just work very well together. She just pops in now and off she goes. And people have actually noticed who've had a healing maybe a year or so ago and then had one more recently. They're just saying, whoa, like she's really coming through even more now, and just that release of me to be this radio station, to allow my guide onto my channel. So something else I want to talk about was the difference between mediumship and channeling. I don't particularly think I know this exactly, or I'm an expert on this, but my understanding is that mediumship is more around connecting with loved ones who have passed and helping be that bridge between them, as opposed to and maybe some mediums. There are some mediums who are channels as well, but mediums are connecting with that energy of the loved one and bringing through messages from them. Whereas for me, I'm not doing that, and mine is more around these energies from different realms who come through, and they're very for the highest good of all. Like, the messages are always very, in some ways, generic, but very for just, for the best, for the highest, for us all, to just help give us comfort. That's what I find. The messages are very, very comforting. I have had some mediumship experiences. I have had an experience, as I said, my nan wrote, I did automatic writing, where sometimes you pick up a pen and you may just feel, and you could just try doing this. You might just want to ask for a message from your guardian angel and just see if something comes. But I didn't expect this. I think I was doing something else for work. I was at my workplace when this happened. And my nan just started flowing through and writing to me. And she'd passed maybe 6 months earlier. And it was very comforting, very, very comforting to hear from her. So I have had that experience. I have had my sister-in-law talk directly through me to her mum. That was pretty full on. And it was, there was so much about that, but that was pretty full on. And I have had another experience with a beautiful woman who I just love so much, a business mentor of mine, who came through in a very overt way and woke me up one morning in my bed. There was a big conference that was happening that she would normally run. It was her conference. And she woke me up the morning of it and told me to go to my computer and to type out what she said. And she wanted to close her conference that she would normally close. So that was pretty amazing as well. So I'm going to talk about some different ways that people channel. So the writing, I've spoken about sound channeling. I think people can bring through sounds and singing. I think so many singers, so many creative people are tapped in. They are connected to the higher realms. They are bringing through inspired information, inspired music to help heal this planet, to help so many humans. So I think there's so much of that there are channelers all over in the creative spaces. And not only creative spaces, I mean, you could have an accountant who's working away, who has just an inspired way of dealing with a problem, and that could be coming. We're just being helped all the time. Surgeons, I believe. I'm sorry if you're a surgeon and you believe that you're doing all of the work in those operation rooms, but I believe that there are a lot of higher beings that are intermingling in hospitals and helping many, many situations there. Movement channeling, people moving, like I have energies that literally dance through me, move my body around. It feels amazing. So there's just so many ways to channel. And for me, there are kind of 3 ways I channel. If I put aside the writing, the movement, the sound, that stuff, there are 3 ways that I channel. And the easiest way for me to channel is where I just surrender my being and the energy comes through and just talks. The Second easiest way for me to channel is where I call this me staying at the front. And it still sounds like me. It looks like me. Slightly different. You could notice it's slightly different. But basically, I just ask the guides to feed the words through one by one. And so I just say the words that are coming into my mind from them. So it looks more like me. And early on in my channeling, when I first came out of the closet, that's what I was doing. I was not doing any channeling with the guide at the front. I was at the front and I was scared to do the guide at the front because one of my guides, Goenga, the first guide who came through, I look so weird when he comes through because he contorts my jaw, and him and I just haven't worked out a way to connect, him get on my channel without that happening. I don't know why, but it looks pretty full on. So for a long time, I kept myself at the front. So it looked like me. I would say I was giving a channeled message, but it was me that appeared to be saying the words. So that's a bit harder. That requires more effort from me because I've got to bring the words through. The third way, which is even harder for me, which is, and I haven't done a lot, but I've played with it a little bit, which is where I've said to my guides, okay, don't feed all the words directly to me, but let me try and piece it together a little bit, use symbols and use concepts, and I will kind of bring through the message that way. So I have tried that a little bit. I haven't done it a lot, to be honest, because it requires a lot more effort from me. So that's maybe similar in a way to some people who do readings or psychic mediums that maybe use symbols and things like that to interpret, and they use their own constructs. So I learned this from a beautiful medium. Shout out to you, Lindy Gunston, if you ever listen to this, around this concept. I think she called it mirror of the mind, where they can basically kind of tap in to all your filing cabinet and access all the references of things that mean something to you. And so they might bring through a symbol that means something to me that I then know how to interpret that, and I say whatever it is. So something like that. And then there's the light codes, which I've spoken about, and those who listen to one of the early episodes, I did some light code language, which is, much more pure transmission because they're not limited by our language, basically. So they're the main things that I want to say about channeling. I want to also talk about the limitations of channeling. And these can be frustrating to me because so often I kind of want more. Right, this podcast is called Awakening to More. And I want more from my guides, even though it's phenomenal that they can come and get on my channel and share these beautiful messages. Sometimes just I want something really more specific. I want you to, say, I don't know what I want, but I think there's still that tiny skeptical part of me, which I think it's good to stay and keep that part of ourselves. But, I'm sure there are other channelers or mediums or psychics who, can bring through really specific information, whereas mine are limited in what they can communicate. They're limited within my own energy field, and to some degree they're limited by the density of my energy compared to their energy. So what I'm saying is that they don't have full access, I believe, to everything that they could possibly say when they're in my energy field, because they have to bring their energy down to meet me. And so it's a lot denser than they are when they're not channeling through me. And so that limits what they can share with me. There's also limitations on what they can share. They often talk about clearance. They say, we don't have clearance to tell you that. We don't have clearance. Or if I have a session and someone wants to ask questions, more the kind of questions I'd ask a psychic medium, then sometimes my guides will be able to provide some information, but it's more around the reading of their energetic system. But then they will say, we don't have clearance. We don't have clearance to be able to share that, for example. Yes. So in simple but not exactly accurate terms, my energy, my consciousness reaches up and they reach down and we meet and they get on my channel. But it's limited in that I'm speaking English, as I've spoken about, and they are multidimensional beings with no body that have access to information that moves in ways that our language does not. And so they have to somehow fit what they're trying to say into that limitation. And yeah, that can be sometimes a bit frustrating because I just want, I just want more guides from you. I want you to be able to really blow my socks off. Isn't that crazy? How's the ego still within me? Yeah, so it's an interesting business. I've really got to drop my own identity, my own thoughts, surrender to them. And I think that, there's criticism of channeling and channelers, and some of that's valid, which is that I don't think we should just believe everything that comes through a channel. I don't think we should just go, okay, wow, they're channeling these beings from higher dimensions, so we should just believe everything that they say, because my sense of these beings is that they're still very much like a personality. They're still very much like they've got a sense of their perspective of things. And so it's not, for me, it's not channeling direct source. And so I think we always need to keep our wits about us when you're listening to a channeled message, and always put everything through your own filter, your own system, to see what resonates with you and what feels good for you. And yes, I do believe they have a very expanded view, much more than most humans. They are able to access expanded consciousness. They are able to see things through the veils. They are able to see the illusions that exist here in this realm. But still always just trust yourself. Trust yourself. And always, check everything through your own filter, and trust your own guidance and trust your own intuition. So that's my big chat. I feel like this was a bit of a serious episode. I feel like I was like trying to take you through all the little lecture, the channeling lecture. I don't mean it to be like that, but I'm just wanting to share, I guess, early on, given that that's kind of my main bag in the spiritual space in the work that I do, is the channeling, just to share a little bit about how it came about and my understanding of channeling in the best way that I can. And things will shift and change in my understanding of channeling. I still feel like a baby in the channeling space. And my hope is that over the decades, I will just continue to learn and to, I guess, embrace this part of me, and to be able to share this and help as much as I can. And that's why I came out of the closet, friends, because I felt like I had such an expanded sense of things because of the guides, because of the messages, because of the love that just allowed me to just relax. I just felt like I could just calm down in life because of the comfort that they provided. And so ultimately I thought, if me sharing these messages, even if I look like a weirdo, is going to help one person to have more joy and breathe easier in their life and have comfort, then I'll do it. I'll do it. And I know that it's helped many more than one, the messages. So if you're interested in seeing any of the messages and you're not in my Facebook group, join. The link will be in the little show notes in this podcast. I'm still new to this podcasting thing, but yeah, have a little scout about, jump in. And I'm not super active in that group, but I have shared stacks and stacks. So if you go into the guides section, I think it's interesting, it's called guides. But if you go into the guides section of Facebook and just search and put in channel or channeling, you'll just see heaps of different energies come through and talk through me. I suggest that you even close your eyes, because there can be this cognitive dissonance where you see me and then this other energy is coming through. It can be a bit weird for the brain to to accept. So it's a good idea just to close your eyes so you can really listen to the message. So beautiful. You're a channel. You are a satellite dish. You are a radio with lots of stations and lots of frequency, your own unique signature where different energies can tap in. And the last thing I want to say is I have not experienced one thing of negativity in my own channeling experience in terms of having any energy that I haven't felt was beautiful. And that's because my understanding is that I have a gatekeeper guide, and we all have a gatekeeper guide who helps there. But you've got to really ensure that the intention of what we're putting out there, and I'll probably do at some stage some talking about really trying to keep your energy vessel pretty clean and pretty clear as best as you can in terms of what you're allowing into your mind, your body, all of those things, so that continues to be the case, that we only have good experiences. Because I know that I think there's been some fear around channeling because people are scared that they're going to be possessed by all these other energies and all of this kind of thing. But that definitely has not been my experience. So have a play, have a practice if you want to. Pick up the pen and start writing some questions and seeing what comes through. I'll do a whole nother session at some stage around connecting with your guides and guardian angels, actually. So maybe I'll leave you there. This is maybe my longest one, so I'll leave you there. And thank you so much. And if you know someone who is just starting on their channeling journey and they're not sure and they need some guidance, send them this episode. It may just help them to understand a little bit more of what is going on, because I had no idea what was going on when it all started. And it's just been kind of putting the pieces together in reverse a little bit to work it all out on the way. So thank you, beautiful. You take good care of you. I love you. Bye. So grateful to you for listening. I'd love you to share this. If you got value, rate and review my podcast so I can reach more humans. For loads of free resources, go to aliciatemmerman.com, and that'll take you to my offerings in spaces I play in, my spiritual wellness business, retreats, one-on-ones and other things. Also, I love working with couples, so check out the Marriage Hub. Finally, I have been an employment lawyer for over 20 years now, and I work in workplace mediation, conflict resolution, and mediation in other areas too. DUMAIS, Workplace Services, is where you'll find all that info. I love you. Take good care of you.